Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, where I've entitled it On the Downhill Side of Winter. And I know some people in Elio think that I'm crazy because we've got a lot of winter left. But what I mean by that is we've gotten through January. And January is traditionally our coldest month. It's the least amount of daylight. It's one of those times when resources are really important and we go through a lot of resources. And we have done that, and we are down to a limited supply of deer. Part of that's because we haven't had a lot of snow. We have not had a lot of roadkill. The deer are doing just fine in the woods in northern Minnesota. They don't congregate along the roads looking for salt. They are readily moving around the woods, and so there's not really an issue, which is great for deer, no doubt. But not so good when you rely on roadkill as your primary food supply. So we have a special request. If anyone is interested in helping us get through this, basically, like I said, the deer are going to the main pack because they're our youngest members. They're our most active members that are burning up a lot of calories. The older wolves are being fed supplemental chicken and beef right now, which is kind of a costly investment for the center. So if anybody's looking to buy a meal for Grizzer, Shadow, and Malik, we do have the Wolf Care donation tab right on the wolf vlogs. But we're getting through, and we wanted to put that out there if anybody was interested in donating to that cause. Shadow, Malik, and Grizzer will appreciate it. But as far as getting through the winter, we are certainly seeing some cold days. We've had last Thursday 34 below Fahrenheit for an actual temperature. Tonight, as I'm recording this, I believe is 20-some below. And we are very pleasantly surprised with, first of all, how well Luna is doing during all of this. And second of all, again, that we have the resources necessary to keep the wolves full and happy and enough calories to get through these cold weather. So what you're seeing here is a clip of Aiden finishing off the deer. This was actually filmed on a Monday. So Saturday night the deer is fed, and you can see a fair amount of the hindquarters, which is where a lot of the meat is located, have been consumed. The ravens have been kind of picking on it a little bit, but they'll continue to eat on this. So when we feed once a week to the exhibit pack, that doesn't mean they eat once a week. Aiden here will continue to chew on this deer for several moments of the clip. And throughout the week, you will see interactions around it. Now, this actual interaction, there's no deer, just the hide. And again, Luna and Bolts and Denali here are kind of wrestling and jaw sparring on the straw bed in front of the live streaming camera, interacting on some of that hide. So it is not only a food supply, but it also is kind of a social interaction. But Denali's getting a little bit of hackles up, and that's one thing that we've been kind of watching this winter. January is kind of the most aggression, is typically between January and February. That's the natural breeding cycle for wolves, and even though our wolves are spayed and neutered, that's still the period of time when they tend to be most active. And so we're seeing, again, a lot of those food resources are necessary to be able to try to reduce some of that aggression that kind of normally happens, and that means that the wolves are satiated and they're not, not hungry in a cold spell that might stimulate something that might already be aggressive. And so, as we said, we've used the moose hide for that. But overall, like I say, they're getting along real well, and I'm most impressed, again, with Luna's situation. We got her as a pup. She had some issues. We didn't know how she was going to get through, the troubles that she had. We were able to turn around some of the nutritional problems and get her the resources necessary to develop. And obviously the metal plate from the fracture that she suffered when she was a 4-week-old pup was a concern. It was a concern on how is she going to deal with these sub-zero weather. And she's doing quite well, although it doesn't mean that we aren't going to really think about, long-term if that plate is necessary for stability or if it's got a trade-off from the standpoint of cold weather. We'll be talking to the veterinarians about that. But we are so very fortunate that she's doing as well as she's doing. And again, we are always concerned about every individual, not just Luna, but how Aiden's dealing with this new pups, how he's being respected as a dominant pack leader. As you saw from the earlier clips, Denali's not getting all that much respect, but Denali has a tendency to just kind of wrestle around with them and doesn't act like a leader, so therefore doesn't get treated much like a leader. But these pups, again, are thriving in weather that we didn't know how that would affect Luna, and thriving with Bolts joining a pair of brothers who had a strong genetic relationship as well as a strong bond going into this, and are they willingly accepting him within the rank? And we're all very pleased with all of that, and that's going real well. So over in Grizzer's world, anytime the main pack gets excited, Grizzer gets excited. And so Grizzer, like I said, is not getting a deer carcass or a beaver, so sometimes he smells that deer, and he will get deer again. You know, we're expanding the roadkill collection process. We're talking with just about anybody we can in northern Minnesota about any resources that we have. But for right now, Grizzer's getting chicken and beef, and that means, boy, he smells a deer in the other pack, but he didn't get it. So it's going to stimulate a little salivation because he likes it. But you can look at Grizzer's body weight. He's doing just fine. And he does, again, get fed retirements, and Grizzard are getting 3 or 4 times a week feedings, and certainly not inhibiting his activity level here as he does a race around the wolf care staff. We're doing scat collection, and he's going to come back around a couple of times here and do those famous Grizzard 500s where we get pretty excited, and that's a good thing. So everybody here, rest assured, will be fed, regardless of what investment we need to make and how we need to make it. And we are down a little bit on beaver. Actually, we're feeding the last beaver out on this Saturday. But beaver trapping is going to pick up here in March, and so we know that we'll be getting beaver in within the month. And so this is just a short-term problem, but certainly something that we always want to make sure of is that the wolves' care is the first and foremost priority of this organization. So that's what Grizzer's doing, like I say, sniffing that deer that they've been feeding on and dragging around and checking it out. So he's going to whine a little bit, and he does want a deer, and we know it. We're looking for one for him. And then he continues to kind of come back around the 3rd or 4th time around. He slows down a little bit and then goes to look for Oscar because the main pack's not all that exciting anymore, so he's going to go see if Oscar's around. So in retirement, probably about a week ago Thursday, we were noticing some changes in retirement. We saw some diarrhea, which sometimes can happen, especially when you change your diet. But we started to see a significant amount, and so we were watching them pretty closely. And after we filmed this clip, which is just growling and irritability, which if you've watched these guys for a long period of time, you know that they've got their moments over food. You know that they've sometimes got their moments over dens. But typically they're not in this kind of a tension between each other. So this clip right there told me that there was something not going very well between these two individuals. So we watched it, and we certainly can see a little bit too in the way they look, and their eyes just didn't look right to us, meaning they're not as bright and they're not as alert, and while they do, also respond to what's going on in the exhibit pack, something just wasn't right to us. So as we film, again, we film for YouTube, but we also film for our own animal management and health conditions. We started to, put the alert up to wolf care staff. Something just didn't seem right to us. So we started to increase the observations, and sure enough, we discovered that we had a little bout of some gastrointestinal issues. Usually when it comes to digestive issues, obviously the first thing we look at is food, especially if both of them are feeling a little under the weather, and maybe a change in food might have caused it. But these wolves are pretty hardy. I mean, I've seen them eat some pretty rank things without a response. And so after just a couple of days of monitoring and knowing that they were a little bit off, called to the vet, we found out that there's a bout of gastrointestinal things going on with Ely dogs. So maybe 20 to 30 dogs in the last week have come in with flu-like symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, definitely being off food and being a little bit irritable. And that could be something that we could have carried in, viral infection, not a bacterial infection. Could have been something that we carried in on our shoes or on our clothes. We could have been near a dog who had a virus and carried it in. So that is something that we've been dealing with. So Shadow Malika, about 6 days, really not feeling very well. By the 7th day, we started to see them wanting to eat again, and then we're glad to report today they willingly ate a whole entire tube of beef, and so they love beef, and actually, so we don't think that they were altered by the change from beaver and deer to beef and chicken, because we'd been feeding chicken and beef all along. We think it was just a viral infection that they caught, and now they're starting to perk up again. And certainly anytime you're dealing with an animal who's about to be 13, you've got to be looking at any health conditions that might impact an animal with a weakened immune system because of age. So that's kind of been preoccupying our time quite a bit this week. Lots of extra wolf checks to these two and making sure that everything is going well. We did end up putting them on some anti-diarrhea medicine because we're most concerned in this cold weather about dehydration. And so they're on the mend. Like I said, they ate a 10-pound tube of beef today, and again, that's an expense that we're willing to pay to make sure that they have meat on a regular basis. So until we get more roadkill, that's our big focus right now, getting enough food so that they do well and have resources necessary to get through this colder weather. So that's it from YouTube, and we are, again, just featuring the exhibit pack, things that are going on. Denali and Bolts, Jospar and Bolts and Denali act like big pups, and he's rolling around with Luna. And then Grizzer, when there was a little posturing going on with Malik and Shadow, was doing some T2 tail, kind of attack tail, aggressive tail towards Malik. He's really still got some issues with Malik. So as we said, Shadow not feeling the best, but he's getting better. So that's it for this week's YouTube. Thanks for watching. See you next week.